end the live stream because apparently there's a connectivity issue. So let me know if you can hear me clearly or if there's any issue with the audio. Of course, we're not looking at each other, we're just listening to each other. I'm back here to try and continue or to actually redo the video that I was trying to do. It's a recording that I was trying to do last week, Friday. I ended up having, to take a few calls, and that whole thing just didn't work out. So hopefully today, I actually did set apart time to do this. So I made sure that I removed interruptions out of the way. So we should be able to do at least an hour or an hour and a half, and we should be able to be sorted where interruptions are concerned. So let's see if anyone joins us for the next 2 to 3 minutes. Today we are going to, just like how it was going to be last week, Friday, sort of like take a bit of a detour. We're going to just focus on a different topic than the topic of, the migration crisis. We're going to tackle a slightly different topic, and then we can always come back to the topic of this migration crisis. We are definitely going to come back to it, but for today, we're just going to, talk about something else. So I've got about 8 things here, 8 points that I jotted down that I want to talk about. So this is yeah, for those of you that are into conspiracy theories or conspiracies, whatever it is that you want to call it, those of you that are seekers, truth seekers, that are into research of, this world, the true nature of this world, this reality, and all of that. As you know, I'm a spiritual person. I'm a very spiritual person. So, and being someone that operates outside of the box, it's not possible for me to not find myself delving into such kind of topics. And if yourself, you are someone that operates outside of the box, you are most likely one of those people as well that will be interested in such kind of topics. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about Tartaria, of course. We're talking about Tartaria. We're talking about flat Earth. Number 3, we're talking about Antarctica. We're talking about number 4, moon landing. Number 5, we're talking about, timelines. Have we changed timelines? Hello there. Who got the keys? Oh, interesting name. Hi, welcome. So we're talking about timelines, have the timelines been changed? Which year are we in? What's going on with this reality? Let's talk a little bit about the soul trap. If you know the concept of the soul trap. Let's talk a little bit about old technology. Okay. And then yeah, so with regards to, I said I had 8 points, so I'm gonna start right away talking about the eighth point instead of talking about the first point. The eighth point is the fact that, my perception of a lot of things, a lot of these points that I'm going to be sharing with you and going to talk, you are welcome to jot down your perspective, your take, your opinions about all of these topics that we're going to be touching here, because I am by no means an expert on any of them, because as you know, these things are mostly theories, things that we all have our own experiences and perception about them. But there is no 100% final concluded agreed upon conclusion with regards to all of these topics, isn't it? So we all have our own take with regards to that. So everyone's opinion is pretty much welcome here. So what I wanted to say is that, before 2020 and even over the past few years as well, I saw my own perception changing quite a bit about a lot of these topics. A lot of things I saw and perceived to be, completely different from how I see them now. I never knew anything about Tartaria until the past maybe 2 years or so. I never understood anything about that. I knew that there was something with regards to, old buildings that I have been constructing and all of that, but and they had a certain type of an impact, an effect on me, but I could never explain it for the life of me until I was able to come across and I'm so fascinated right now because when you're going to social media, TikTok and everything, there are South Africans that are busy making a whole lot of posts about Tartarian buildings, and they will be going around with their phones and taking videos and showing you old world buildings and telling you, these are Tartarian buildings, look at this, and you can see it's the very same buildings that are all over the world. So, but this is not the very same perception and opinion, and I was never interested in any of those things. Actually, I didn't know anything about them. So a lot of these things that I'm going to be sharing with you, the perception that I have about them is something that was not always the case, and this is the opinion and perception that I hold for now. I don't know if anything can change in the future. Hopefully not, but this is where we are right now. All right, that's what I wanted to say. So now, let's look at the first topic, Tartaria. Okay, so because this is the hot topic at the moment. Tartaria is a very hot topic, a hot topic right now, and I think it's because it's one of those things. It's one of these latest discoveries um, where conspiracies are concerned, or conspiracy theories will quote unquote are concerned, isn't it? And as I say, a lot of South Africans have now discovered Tartaria in South Africa, and people are excited, and they are just posting their videos regarding that, so which is great. So what is Tartaria? If any of you know or have your own opinion and perception about it, you're welcome to, share it in the comment section, but or in the chat. But as far as I know, and as far as I have come to understand, based on the little bit of research that I have done, Tartaria is sort of like a general term that is being used to describe, the old empire, the old civilization that existed before ours. There's this general talk about the fact that this world, this earth that we are living in, has gone through several resets before our time. And, with that being the case, the last reset that took place was around, between the 1600s and the 1700s, of the time that we know or that we are used to. And so the previous empire, we don't really know, and the previous civilization, the previous group of people that really existed before ours, we don't really know who they were, because there's little, in most instances, we don't really have concrete things that are just glaring us, that are just literally just staring us in the face. Like, for example, the old buildings, the old technology, the pictures, the postcards, and about the previous world before our current reality is basically what we have been told and what has really transpired are two different things. All right, so Tartaria is a name that is generally used because Tartaria is sort of like the main known empire from that previous civilization. You understand? But we don't really know the name of that previous civilization. We don't know what they really called themselves. Like, for example, even now with our time, um, what if anything were to happen to us, and then a reset were to take place, and then a new civilization were to take to come to pass? What would those people in that new dispensation call us? Would they call us Tartarians? Would they call us Americans? Do you understand? Would they call us Atlanteans? What would they call us? Would they call us Africans? You understand? So Tartaria is an empire that was in sort of like Europe and Russia, that's the last that we know of the previous world, of the previous civilization. But we don't really know what the name for the previous civilization is. So we're using Tartaria as a general name, but it does not necessarily mean, whenever it is that we say this is a Tartarian building, that means that we are implying that, you know, it means the people from Tartaria themselves, particularly were the ones that built. They came to Africa and built in Africa. They built in America. They built all over the world. We don't know. You understand? We don't really know. All we know is that that's the name that we have, and we are running with it. All right. But whenever it is that we use the term Tartaria, what we are really referring to is just the previous civilization that existed all over the world. All right. And what this previous civilization was, as far as we can see, is that it was highly advanced, much, much more advanced than we can ever imagine, much more advanced than our civilization. Not only just advanced, but also evolved both spiritually and intellectually. You understand? And how do we know that? It's because the little bit of evidence that we are able to collect when we do our research with regards to the type and the caliber of people that these were, we can see that they had, created a whole lot of things that are much bigger, grander, better than what we have been able to create with our modern technology. You understand? Let's look at the buildings for one, because the buildings are the ones that are speaking on behalf of the previous civilization. So we are looking at this so-called cathedrals. We are looking at, post office type of spaces, city halls, bank buildings, and all these government buildings, so-called government buildings. All of these buildings are pretty much, old world type of buildings. They are actually buildings from the previous civilization. How do we know that these are buildings from the previous civilization? Because usually the story that comes with these buildings doesn't add up, doesn't make sense. All over the world, the story is generally the same. As my lunch break would say, my lunch break is a channel here on YouTube. And as he would often say, the story that is often given with regards to how these buildings were constructed, who built them, and everything, it pretty much sounds like it has been generated by AI. You understand? Because it's pretty much the same across the board. It's like the story, this is how it usually goes. Okay, so there was some kind of a competition. Someone, like the government or the leader, whoever it is of the time, around the 1800 or the early 1900s, decided, okay, fine, we're going to do a competition for a building. All right. And by that time, the civilization, the population of the time is usually very small. Let's say it's early 1800s, and the population of that particular town or city is about, maybe, let's say, 20,000 people. And then they decide, you know what, we're going to build this huge palace of a building. And then, we want it to be magnificent and everything. And then let's, make a competition. And then people compete for the role to be able to actually build that huge, magnificent structure. And then someone is going to win that competition, and that person that's going to win the competition doesn't even have the qualification, is not a qualified architect or anything like that, no construction background. And sometimes even the people that are purported to be the builders, the actual, construction workers, could even be, sometimes they are slaves, sometimes they are people from prison. It's like sometimes it's just ordinary lay people from the street. And it's like, but how are these people able to, because you need skill, you understand, you need craftsmanship to be able to build this kind of things. How is it possible that these people from 1900s, 1700s, 1800s are able to build such kind of magnificent structures? You understand? They have, as far as we can understand, because remember, we only started developing and inventing tools around the late 1800s and the early 1900s. That's when we started developing tools like, the hammer and chisel and things like that. And or maybe the hammer and chisel, we could have, developed them earlier than that. But a whole lot of tools where construction is concerned were only developed or invented very, very late, around either late 1800s or early 1900s. So at best, these people only had a hammer and chisel to do all these things that they did. It's not possible. And also, you need transport, you understand, to be able to deliver the material, the bricks. And I mean, we've seen the size of some of the bricks that are being used to build these buildings. So you can understand that it's not possible that just an ordinary layperson pushing, a horse on a cart, pushing it on a horse, with a horse, like those people are not going to be able to build these huge buildings. You understand? So it it makes you question the narrative that is being told. And also, how is it possible that all over the world the story is the same? Someone won a competition, and these people will be building this magnificent structures, huge. You've seen the palace. For example, let's look at Windsor Castle. You understand? Let's look at the White House in America. Here in South Africa, we've got our Union Building, the same type of buildings. You understand? These are old world buildings. These people will tell you that these buildings were built in about 2 years. It's like, what? None of this makes sense. Like, logistically, financially, everything. It does not make sense that these people could have been able to, the people that we are told that they are the ones that have built those buildings could be the ones. You understand? And another thing that doesn't add up about these old buildings that we've all come across, because we've all seen them in our own cities, regardless of where you are in the world. Another thing that doesn't add up is the fact that there's always a first floor that is buried underneath the the ground, isn't it? There's always some kind of a ground floor that is buried. There's always some window that is going underneath the ground. So it's like, what's going on there as well? And then that's when the story of the mud flood comes in. You understand? So that's when we begin to understand that, okay, the story as it goes is that the previous civilization was wiped out by some kind of a cataclysm, which could have easily also been a war. Some people say that there could have been a nuclear war of sorts. Basically, there would have been an opposing force. And so, according to Lucius Aurelian, also another channel here on YouTube, he has his theories about the five timelines. And then so he says that we are on the fifth timeline. So there were four previous timelines before ours. That's his theory as well. Because remember, we are all just putting together pieces of a large, huge puzzle, because no one is telling us the truth. No one is giving us any information. In fact, anytime anyone starts talking about this kind of things, they look at you as if you are crazy, and yet reality is staring you in the face and says, look at me, I am this building. And here in South Africa, we are told that the Dutch and the British built these buildings. But you look at them and it's like, nah, it's not who we are told that they build the build. Just like in America, when they tell you that the people that build those buildings is whoever. And also another thing that is very funny is the names of the people who would have built the buildings. It would be like this. It's almost as if it's so AI generated. It's not even funny, because it would be um it would be some funny kind of a name, and then he would have a brother who has the same name as him, and then the person who will be working for him will have the same name as him. And there would be a whole lot of, the story doesn't add up. The story looks very, very dodgy. It looks very shady with regards to the people that we are being told have built the buildings. But here in South Africa, most of the buildings, the people that take credit for them are the Dutch. And we know that's not the case, because um, why is everyone building the same buildings? Why is everyone all over the world building the same buildings? And once again, people who are pushing, as my lunch break would call them, donkey incorporated, people who are pushing horse carriage are not going to be building this beautiful, magnificent type of buildings. They are not going to be doing that. You understand? So the people that built the previous civilization were people who had airships. You understand? These were people who had created airships, who were, they were able to not only just build airships, but even the structures that they built, the houses, the buildings themselves that they had constructed were not just places where you go and live there, but there were also places where technology was generated, energy was generated, evolved type of energy and technology, unlike the one that we are using today. So whatever it is that they had going there as a source of energy, it was something that built humanity. You understand? That edified the human being. that empowered the human being. And so, yeah, they had airships. They also had flying saucers. As far as I can see, with a little bit of research that I've done, they also had flying saucers as well. Like literally little things that look like little triangles that you can just, go into it, and it hovered and it could fly, and it could fly very fast. You understand? So they had that, and some of these things, they look like alien type of transportation, but it's really, transportation from the previous civilization. So they had railway stations, they had trains, they had subways, they had everything. The people of the previous civilization lived like kings and queens, whereas now, in our day and age, people who live that lifestyle are only a select few, which is one of the things that brings us to, the main theme of this channel, which is narcissism. You understand? Because at the moment, we are living in that dispensation where the spirit of narcissism is ruling supreme, unfortunately. And what happens with narcissistic individuals is that they create an environment and a world where everyone else is oppressed, everyone else is a pauper, except a select few. So they always have to have that pyramid where they are the ones in charge and literally everyone else is suffering. So they are the ones that live in palaces, and everyone else get to live in, square little boxes. You understand? Everyone gets to live in this horrible, horrible prison looking type of boxes that we call, apartments. You understand? So this is what the narcissistic regime does. So when you talk about the New World Order and the Satanic Order, this is something that started once the previous civilization was wiped out. So this current dispensation that we are on, as far as we can see with this little bit of research, this current dispensation that we are on now has been built on the lives, literally the tombs, the catacombs of the previous civilization. All right. So going back to that the cataclysm that wiped out the previous civilization. So according to Lucius Aurelian, um, with every timeline that would have existed, for example, according to him, the first timeline would have been the one that had pyramids, and then after that one, there would have been one that had, I think they could have had star forts. They could have been the creators of the star forts, and then after that one, I could be mixing some of these timelines, but I'm just giving sort of like an overall type of an idea with regards to how his timelines go. And then after the Staffords, there would have been the sort of like gothic, not even gothic, but there's the sort of like fairy tale style type of housing. I think I could have it wrong as well. And then there was the fourth one, the fourth timeline, which is the one that came before us, which are the builders of the cathedrals, the castles and this monumental type of buildings that, this gigantic, beautiful, wondrous marvels that we have come across. I mean, even if you were to try and describe the beauty and glory of this previous buildings, you wouldn't have enough time to describe it because it's just that magnificent. And it's not just about beauty that this previous buildings held with them, but it's also the fact that they had power. And so this is the story that I was trying to tell in the previous recording that I did that failed. I was trying to say that what happened with me is that whenever it is that I found myself throughout my whole entire life, whenever it is that I found myself around such kind of buildings, something would energetically happen within me. And as I said, because I did not know what I did not know then, I could not understand why is it that whatever it is that was happening to me was happening to me. I would start having some kind of strange experiences. And the best way to describe what it is that I was dealing with at the time is that it would feel like I am wearing a stiletto and a sneaker at the same time, like a running shoe and a shoe for, runway modeling at the same time. So it would feel like I'm wearing a stiletto and a sneaker at the same time. It would feel so uncomfortable to be in those buildings because the building would be speaking a slightly different message. Like, there's something like when you enter into that kind of a building, for example, what happens is there's something echoes back to you. Like there's something that comes, it's something hits you from that building. And whatever it is that hits you, it's almost as if you are sort of like receiving some kind of an akashic record or something like that. I don't know how to explain it. But whatever it is, it would be so huge for our little, small minds, programmed minds to comprehend. That's how it was for me. My small little puny mind that knew nothing about this reality that we are existing in, I could not fathom, I could not comprehend, I could not understand, I could not receive anything that these buildings were trying to even give to me. You understand? But it just felt so strange, so uncomfortable, and it also felt very sad at the same time as well. And to the most part, I found myself enjoying and marveling whenever it is that I looked at the building, whenever it is that I'm around the building. But then walking away from them, I would be feeling like something is not right, but I can't quite put my finger on it. I can't quite figure out what exactly is this that's not right. And somewhere, somehow, it would always feel like something is not fair in this world. There would almost always be that sense of unfairness that seems to be existing in the world, and I wouldn't be able to understand what exactly is it that feels so unfair. And then until now, when we began to understand that this was all Tartaria, and you realize that these buildings were everywhere, and this is where people lived, this is how people existed. I mean, we had a heaven on earth in the previous civilization. We had a very beautiful way of existence. You understand, and it was all taken away, and it was replaced by a very dark force. You understand, that we are now existing in, which is the new world order. Okay, it's not coming, it's already here. It's constantly trying to upgrade itself and reinforce its power and solidify itself and make sure that it doesn't got written off. But it's always been here. We are living in it. We call it the matrix, isn't it? So it's not something that is new, it's not something that is coming. It's something that has always existed. Not as in always, but always as in for the past few hundred years, to at least 100 years. It started around, officially around 1776, but it established itself gradually from the 1600s. As soon as the previous civilization was, removed, then this new world order started bringing itself in. And once again, according to research, this new world order, how it brought itself in after that previous civilization was removed. Let's talk about the removal of it first, which is that cataclysm. So once again, we're going back to Lucius Aurelian. Lucius Aurelian talks about the fact that the previous civilizations always had an opposing force that was always trying to destroy it. So, for example, if you know about how the Eastern or the Hindu religion sort of like keeps record of timelines, they'll say there's a golden age, there's a bronze age, there's an iron age, and then there's I forgot the other age, the silver age. Yes. So basically what happened is that we had a golden age. The way I see it is like we would have a golden age, and then we would have a dark age, then we'll have a golden age, then we'll have a dark age. And that's pretty much also how Lucius Aurelian sort of like puts it as well. So there will be this beautiful golden age where humanity will be doing very well. You've got pyramids, you've got all these beautiful things going on, amazing things, amazing discoveries. Humanity is thriving. And then next thing you know, we are having a situation where we are now, beginning to go through a decline. And then as we go through a decline, meaning, we've enjoyed all that there is to enjoy about what that era has to offer. And then for some reason, we are beginning to experience a state of decay. And then when that begins to happen, then some kind of, an external force starts to come and creep in. It's almost as if there'll be some kind of a group of people from God knows wherever it is that they will be coming from. And then this group of people would be representing a completely different force from the one that we would be representing. Because we would be happy, would be living happily, harmoniously as one world, loving each other, the whole world unified, and we all sharing ideas. As you can see all over the world, these buildings were there, which means we were people that this whole earth was very small for us. You understand? Very in a few seconds we could fly to each other's places, visit each other, and quickly go back to where we came from. We had it good like that. We were amazing like that. But then there will be some other force that will just creep in. And according to Lucius Aurelian, initially the force will come and just, create war, come and fight. But whenever it is that it would come and fight, overtly and outwardly, the group of people that would be existing, or let's say our civilization, would very easily and very quickly overcome them. You understand? So whatever kind of technology and everything that they had in place was sufficient to ward off any opposing force, especially when it comes in the form of war. However, the part where our previous civilization did not have it all good was the part where infiltration is concerned. And so this is how they were eventually destroyed in the previous era. So what happens is that when that decay begins to take place, and then this other opposing force realizes that it cannot win through war, what it does is that it comes in and it infiltrates the group. You understand? And then what it does is it presents itself as a friendly force, or it even presents itself as one of us. You understand? Just like the narcissistic force. You know how a narcissistic force operates. The narcissist is your relative. The narcissist, it can be your child, it can be your parent, it can be your friend, it can be your lover, it can be your boss, it can be anyone. And but then it's like the narcissist is there in your life somewhere, somehow. You don't know how the narcissist popped up. It's like we're all asking ourselves, where do narcissists come from? We can look at it from a psychological and scientific perspective to say, okay, it's nature versus nurture and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's like, where do narcissists come from, really? Where does this whole thing of narcissism come from? That urge, that impulse for destruction, that impulse to just cause chaos and havoc, that impulse for evil. And it's not just any kind of evil, but this is evil for the sake of evil. You understand? It's not the kind of evil that says, oh, I've done something wrong and I feel bad. No, it's evil that derives pleasure from destruction, from evil for the sake of evil. You understand? So in the same way, they found themselves grappling with the same type of force as well. As far as I can see, they were probably infiltrated by the narcissistic force. So as they started decaying, the narcissistic force began to grow within that race, within that civilization, within that group. You understand? The narcissistic force, the narcissistic impulse just increased gradually. More and more narcissists, became prevalent within society, and narcissism began to become something that was okay. And then one of the things that gives me that impression is that you can see towards the end, that of this particular civilization, the structures and the things that they started creating were no longer things that were very nice. You start seeing goblins. You start seeing things that look very monstrous. Now they start calling it Gothic architecture. You understand? It looks a little bit dark and gruesome. You understand? So it's like you can see that gradually these people started accepting and normalizing certain things that may have not necessarily been ideal. And it's highly likely also that narcissistic individuals rose to positions of power and authority. You understand? And if you know anything about narcissism, narcissism hates goodness. Narcissism hates kindness because the vibrational frequency does not align. So narcissistic individuals will always do anything and everything in their power to destroy things that are high in vibrational frequency. So all those, airships that were docking on top of those buildings and charging themselves, and all that free energy, free technology, free electricity, free everything, that would not have worked for narcissists. You understand? That whole thing where everyone is happy, everyone is blessed, everyone is living in a castle, everyone is wearing beautiful garments, and I mean, people were just enjoying that whole thing would never have worked for narcissists. So they would have definitely needed to destroy that previous civilization. Because in a narcissist mind, it's like, that whole little cartoon of the Pinky and the Brain. It's like, gee, Pinky, what are we gonna do today, or something along the, it's like same thing we do every night, it's a G brain, what are we doing? And then brain response, same thing we do every night, Pinky, try to take over the world. So I'm sure a whole lot of those narcissists that popped up around that particular era looked around and said, "Oh my God, this would be very nice if all of these people would, be my slaves, and I would be on top. I would be the king and queen, and my family would be the only one that are in charge, and the rest of them would just be my slaves, basically." And let me go ahead and create that system, and let me go ahead and align myself to a very demonic force and get whatever power that I need to be able to manifest my vision, my objective. That's the way I see it. And so according to the Christian sect that believes in the millennial reign of Christ, they say that this previous dispensation that we are calling the Tartarian Empire was actually the millennial reign of Christ. It's possible. I'm not going to dispute it. I'm not going to say, no, that's not what happened, because I don't know. You understand? It's possible that that could have been the case, that, the previous civilization was actually, maybe a thousand years that Christ reigned on earth. And because, in most buildings, you will also see a whole lot of pictures and a whole lot of drawings and a whole lot of artwork that do depict Jesus Christ here and there. Actually, quite a lot of them, they do depict that, and so on. So it's possible. That's very much possible. Now, let's talk about the races also that existed in that previous civilization. Because people say, oh, Tartarians were white people. No, it was all the races. So the previous civilization had all the races. You understand? A lot of people will tell you, even in this particular research, about the Moors, who were the black people that were pretty much, very prevalent in Europe, in fact, and even in America as well. But the previous civilization did not have this thing that we are having here today, where race is used the way that it's being used. The previous civilization appreciate it. It's like it was, here in South Africa, they say power in diversity or unity in diversity. That's the motto of the previous civilization. As far as I can see, they didn't have that thing of, no, you are white, you are black, and no, this. No, they understood and respected each other's differences, and, the cultures and all of that, because they were very evolved people. Do you understand? They were very, very evolved. I mean, when we look at this whole story of the fairs, the exhibitions and all of those things that were taking place around the 1700s and the 1800s, and the last of them were around the 1900s. These exhibitions that pertained to the previous world, even though that's not what we are being told, but we can see that really these are things that people found from the previous world. We can see that those people were so advanced that there's no way that they would have been people who had the same kind of mindset as our type of civilization. You understand? These were the people that were much more evolved spiritually and consciously. You understand? So, and of course, it was not just, the different races in terms of, black, white, Asian, Indian, whatever, but they also had different other species as well. This is some of the things that also, mainstream history is depriving us of. There were giants, of course, and then there were people like here in South Africa, the statues that we have in front of these old buildings. The people that are there, the legs are not human legs. They look like it's not a fish, but it looks like a fish type of leg. So it's very weird type of looking legs, but that's pretty much so, which means there probably were people like that as well. You understand? So they were, and even their little pets and animals, they look like chimeras. So they had a head of a lion and a body of maybe an eagle or something like that, like the griffins and things like. So they had different. So there were a whole lot of things that were actually happening in the previous civilization than we have been informed about. You understand? So it was not just different races, but it was also different species type of people. For me personally, the way I see it is that some of these people and beings and species would have escaped, because I don't believe that all of them died. I really do believe that some of them did escape to other places that we don't know about. You understand? Which is going to bring us to, that part where maybe we will talk about Antarctica, when we talk about Antarctica, we will touch on that. So I do believe that some of the people from the previous civilization just left this particular realm because the vibrational frequency was no longer conducive for their type, and so they went to other parts of Earth that we don't have access to. Okay, so I hope I covered what I needed to cover. I don't see any questions here in the chat. So I'm going to continue to the next uh, topic because there's a lot that I said. I took 40 minutes just on Tartaria alone, and I have not even begun to scratch the surface of Tartaria. But yeah, maybe we can always come back to the topic another time. But now I'm going to go on to flat Earth. And yeah, I understand that, these are some of the topics where you definitely will lose people on them, and it is what it is. We just have to talk about them. And yeah, this is a very divisive topic. These are very divisive topics on their own. And once again, these are, different people's takes and perspectives. Just because I see things a particular way doesn't mean you are forced to, see things the same way as well. You understand? You are welcome to have your own perspective, opinion, and so on. So for me personally, as far as I see it, because flat Earth has been another thing that has just been popping up and it refuses to go away. Honestly, you need to convince me that the Earth is round. Like I think generally as human beings we need to be taught that the Earth is round. That's something that we need, because um, if left to ourselves, I really do believe that common sense will tell us that the Earth is flat. Honestly, that's my take. But once again, maybe common sense to me might be something different to what someone else might see as common sense. You understand? But for me personally, the way I see it, it's like every time you have to bring out a whole lot of charts, and you have to take me through a science lesson to understand why is it that that something is a particularly the Earth being round. It's like, nah, honestly, mm-mm. you know there's a way that if someone has to explain something to me about it, it's like, if you have to explain it to me that way, then I know you are trying to sell me something. The other day I was looking at, one of these videos on social media where someone was showing an old video, and it was, this children type of videos, where it's like children program. And so the presenter of that program was taking the kids through the fiction section of whatever lesson that they were teaching. And right there in the center of that fiction section was actually the globe of the Earth. And it's like, yeah, that falls under the fiction section of the whole thing. Honestly, to be very, very honest with you, I trust very little about what the people that run this world tell me. And a lot of things that come from them, I really don't buy. Okay. I really do not trust. I really do not just, I prefer not to just accept it at face value, because as I said, one of the things that people will tell you, particularly the Christians that believe in the millennial reign of Christ having had passed, whether that's true or not, but they will tell you that we are in Satan's little season right now. And honestly, even for me personally, whether I believe in the millennial reign of Christ or not, because I don't know what I don't know about that whole situation, but as far as I can see, it definitely does feel and look like we are in Satan's little season. It looks like the devil has been unleashed somewhere, somehow. And the people that look into Tartaria, that are into Tartaria research, will tell you that, after the previous cataclysm, because in the previous civilization, basically what would have happened is that this dark force, this narcissistic people that wanted to basically destroy the world, what they did, they probably, caused some kind of an explosion. They probably tampered with nuclear weapons or something along those lines, and they created some kind of a natural disaster, and perhaps that's how the mud flood situation ended up occurring. And with that being the case, um, after the people, died of the previous civilization, and after some of them fled and all of that happened, and the cities were empty all over the world, here in South Africa, this group of people, we all know them, we all know who they are. It's that small group of people that are in charge of the world, in charge of the matrix and everything. They sent the Dutch here in South Africa, but they sent people all over the world. Even in America, they sent people there to go and colonize America. So they sent people everywhere to colonize the world. You understand? And so um, it's almost as if, because you'll hear stories about the orphan trains, how that all of a sudden it's like there are trains which has hundreds of thousands of children in them, and the people were always asking themselves, but where do the children come from? And then you'll hear stories about cabbage patches, and basically people trying to explain away the fact that these children are here, but where are their parents? So then they will say the children are coming out of cabbage patches, just to basically yeah, explain away the fact that the children don't have parents. But the way I see it, it's highly likely that those children, some of them are the orphans from the previous civilization that was wiped out. And some of those children were probably the children that were created, that were literally, what is the word? Um, I'm struggling to find the right word, but they were sort of like created, made, designed to exist in this particular paradigm, but they were not, even though physically and they looked like everyone else, they looked like normal human beings, but they were not the normal human beings. They were literally, I really, really believe that a whole lot of narcissists were brought into civilization around that time, around the early 1600s and 1700s, when this whole orphan trains were busy making their rounds. I believe that many of the children that came about were people, this were probably lab experiment type of people, because remember the previous civilization had that kind of technology. You understand? They had everything. The previous civilization had the kind of technology that would be able to literally monitor the world, and that very same technology has been taken over by this dark order as we speak. You understand? So this technology that we, for example, as we speak now, we all know that we are being surveilled, we are being monitored. People can see us. You understand? People will tell you, no, cover your phone because people can see and hear your phone and everything. No, it's not just the phone. Like, and it's not only starting now. There is some kind of technology where someone is able to go wherever it is that they are able to go, or into whatever room or office, and they can just look there and press whatever coordinates that they need to press, and they can see anyone from anywhere. And it doesn't matter whether you're inside a building or wherever it is that you are, but they can see you. They can see what you're doing. And not only can they see you, but they can also hear your thoughts. You understand? So that's the kind of technology that the previous civilization had. And now this Satan's little season, this crew from this particular dispensation has taken all of that over. You understand? So that's where we are. They have taken that over and they are using it against humanity. I'm sure the purpose of that particular technology at that point in time, when initially it was created, it was for something else and something good and benevolent. But right now, that's not the case. All right. So I really do believe that these people, because they are, I think what I was looking, the word that I was looking for previously is breeding. There are breeding programs. So they most likely bred a whole lot of narcissistic people so that they can infiltrate and they can, be quite, significant in number, so that even when they, participate in this world, it wouldn't be easy to, really overcome the force that they represent as it would have been previously. You understand? Because remember, the narcissistic force believes in power in numbers. Okay. The narcissistic force believes in the power of numbers. So the narcissistic force does not like that whole thing of running solo, doing the solo thing and all of that. The narcissistic force wants to always dominate through numbers. So it would have definitely created, bred a whole lot of people, a whole lot of people, a whole population of people to say, okay, fine. Let's have, if there's only 20,000 people existing on Earth right now, we're going to make probably 30,000, narcissists. We're going to breed 30,000 narcissists, and then we're going to, you know, bring them onto the planet, and then make sure that they are all over the place, and make sure that they push the same agenda. Because once again, if you know about narcissists, if you know narcissists, the way they think, it's almost as if it's the same person, right? It's almost as if, if you watch the movie The Matrix, and those sentinels, or Agent Smith, it's like, when Agent Smith goes into a person, it's still Agent Smith. You understand? So when you are coming across someone that is possessed by Agent Smith, you are still dealing with Agent Smith. It doesn't matter if it's the lady wearing the red dress, or if it's a man who is working, next to a line or whatever, or working at the post office, or working at the bank, or it doesn't matter who it is. As long as they are possessed by Agent Smith, you are dealing with Agent Smith. You understand? So narcissists are like that. It's like you are dealing with the same force, the same energy. It's like no empathy. All right. Divide and conquer, evil, and then very pretentious. You understand? And yeah, it's very demonic. So it's the same thing. So literally, you can see that you are dealing with a force here that has been, it's almost as if you, once again, you are dealing with an AI program. Because another thing about narcissists is no self-reflection, no self-reflection, no self-reflection. You understand? So and then that's where the topic of non-player characters, soulless beings come, to play. Because how can you be a human being and not have the capacity to self-reflect? Like, how is that possible? You understand? So, but narcissists have no capacity to self-reflect. So, which means it's highly likely that these are probably people that somehow have been genetically modified so that they have no capacity to self-reflect. So they literally serve like biological or organic robots. And then all that they ever do is literally play out the programs that have been set out, or that have been set up within them by the opposing forces of life. And it's highly likely that their main objective, agenda, and purpose in existence is to basically, become a problem, to be an opposition to the people that represent the previous dispensation. You understand? Or the people that represent anything that has to do with a high vibrational frequency. All right, so now let's go back to flat Earth, because that's where we were. So I don't know how I ended up going on that tangent there, but here, when it comes to flat Earth, what I wanted to say is that, honestly, like, if you have to bring a whole lot of scientists and a whole lot of things like that, nature is very, very simple and straightforward. To the most part, it is, especially certain things that are just, general type of things. Nature is very simple and straightforward. We have, different types of seasons. We have winter, summer, and, spring and autumn, and all of those things. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot. You don't need science to explain all of those things to understand that, we've got ebbs and flows. You understand? So I really believe that, even with regards to the shape of the earth, it's that simple and straightforward. It's like, if the earth is moving at however millions of speeds per hour and whatever, common sense will say, okay, fine. If we are moving, you will feel the earth moving beneath you. You understand? That's just how it is. It's like, if the earth is moving, you're going to feel it. If you are in a move, if you are in anything that is moving, or if you are on top of anything that is moving, then you will feel it. You will feel it. So why is it that we're not feeling the fact that we are moving? Why? Is it possible that the reason why we don't feel the fact that we are moving is because we are not moving? You understand? And really, if we were busy spinning around in space, with the level of chaos that apparently is always taking place in space, how is it possible that we are not, crashing into anything? And how is it possible that, even though we are busy flying around in space like that, but everything happens the same way in terms of the sky, the sun, the moon, the stars, everything is in the same place all the time. The planets are in the same position to the most part. If they move just a little bit. The stars are always in the same position. If there's any movement, is only a small itty bitty type. The sun and the moon, they're always pretty much in the same position. Like, how come, nothing changes around us if we are busy moving? Where are we going? You understand? So honestly, that whole thing of us flying around, and also the fact that if we are flying around, why is it not possible with all the technology? Apparently, we are more advanced than the previous civilization. So why are we not able to go into space really and really explore these things that apparently are happening out there in space? How is that possible? So no, no. Honestly, the minute things get that complicated, you just know that something is not right. And no one complicates things like narcissists. You understand? Like if you've dealt with narcissists long enough, then you will understand that you will know certain things even when they smell like narcissists. Like it's like, nah, that this I smell a narcissist here. This explanation that I'm getting here sounds like a narcissist explanation. A wet salad from a narcissist. And one of the reasons why children struggle with a lot of topics like science and technology, when these things are really supposed to be fun, and these things are really supposed to be things that are embraced, and I'm sure the previous civilizations embraced them very, very much. One of the reasons why children are struggling with this kind of subject is because you are causing cognitive dissonance in the child, because you are teaching them things that misalign them from reality. And then now we as human beings are forced to have to embrace concepts and ideas that are not true. And we are supposed to take them as doctrine. And we are supposed to accept them in order to be able to have qualifications and in order to be able to play a role in society. We are forced to accept ideas and information that is not true, that is not real. We are not taught in school things that are very important that we really need to know and understand, things like emotional intelligence. We are not taught things that are very important, things like understanding, the alignment of the stars, and our relationship with nature, because we are one with nature, we are one with the earth. And many a times when you start talking like this, it sounds like, oh no, you're just being woo woo, you're being spiritual. But that's reality. It's not even about being spiritual, but that's true science. Our connection with nature, our connection with different types of stones, different types of herbs, different types of trees, different types of things that exist in this world. But of course, we are not going to get that type of information, because once again, if we are in Satan's little season and the devil and his little children are running the show, then of course, that's not something that they're going to, try and push, because why on earth would they empower human beings? Human beings are good enough as slaves and nothing else, isn't it? So, but yeah, I don't know your take with regards to what the earth is, because you ain't saying nothing. So, let's look at number 3, Antarctica. So of course, people who are doing researches into these things and all of that, some of them are legit, some of them are, of course, plants. We don't know what we don't know. We just listen, we learn whatever it is that we can learn, we take whatever it is that we can take, and it is what it is. But so far as I've seen, as far as I have discovered, I will say that my suspicion is that this whole thing of Antarctica, because we know about the Antarctica Treaty, and how that everyone is at war with each other on this planet. Every country is fighting with each other for something. America is fighting against Russia and all of that, but all of them have managed to agree. We all know about that. They've managed to agree that they will not let us go to Antarctica to explore Antarctica freely. You understand? Is it possible that the reason why they don't want us to explore Antarctica on our, because let's face it, it's not because they care about us. It's not because they are scared that something bad will happen to us, because something bad happens to us every day, in this world that we are living in, that they have exposed us to, because they have unleashed narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths on us. They have created them. And not only have they unleashed that on us, but they have also unleashed a whole lot of viruses and a whole lot of things upon us. So it's not like they're trying to protect us. They're definitely trying to protect themselves. There is something that they don't want us to discover there. You understand? Is it possible that Antarctica could be a doorway to other worlds outside of this Earth, outside of the known Earth? Another thing when we talk about flat Earth is that when you look at the flag or the sign, the symbol of United Nation, it looks like a flat Earth. Okay, and then when you look at the maps of the previous civilization, maps from the 1500s and all of that, which are the maps that were created by the previous civilization, and so far we can understand that the previous civilization was much more intelligent than our civilization. When you look at those maps are flat Earth maps. Okay, they are not round Earth maps. This round Earth thing only started happening, as soon as these people started doing their thing. I think it started happening around the early 1900s, somewhere there. When I think some organization whose name I will not mention, that starts with an N, it's an American organization. When that established itself and they started doing that whole moon landing thing and everything, that's when the Earth started being round. But the whole time the Earth was flat and everyone knew it, everyone was okay with it. Then they come with some other story as to people from the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages thought the Earth was flat and they were wrong. No, very, very intelligent, very, very advanced people knew that the Earth was flat. Okay, so maps from the previous civilizations, they always show that the Earth was flat. And not only do they show that the Earth was flat, the Earth is flat, but they also show that there are other worlds beyond this world that we know. So when you look at that flag again for the United Nations, you will see that there's this white um, sort of covering around the so-called round Earth. That yeah, it is a round Earth because I almost said globe Earth, but yeah, the round Earth, and it's a flat Earth. You can see the Earth is flat there, and then there's this white ring around it. Okay, so for me, when I look at that, it tells me so somewhat, or the way I take it is that this is their area or their territory of dominance. This is as far as they have control over us, and anything beyond that, beyond the ice ring, they have no control. It's like it's beyond their jurisdiction. So it's almost as if perhaps the agreement, that's how I see it, I could be wrong, but that's my perspective on it, that their jurisdiction is within this ice ring. Right. And then beyond the ice ring, they have no jurisdiction. And so, because we are sort of like, someone mentioned this is a prison planet, and I disagreed with them vehemently. And now it's like, okay, I see. You could be right. This could definitely be a prison planet. So because this is some kind of a mini type of a prison of sorts, perhaps the agreement is that we're going to keep these little prisoners in this little ice ring, and then they cannot go outside it. They cannot go beyond it. They have to stay. Let's agree that is our Antarctica treaty to make sure that no one goes beyond this border, beyond the ice ring. Okay, because Antarctica is highly likely the ring around the Earth, as opposed to just a specific area or a specific location. You understand? But it's most likely as an ice ring, an ice wall around our particular geographical area on the planet. So beyond that, it's highly likely that there are a whole lot of places, as the old maps would have indicated. And as other people, some of them, they've got channels here on YouTube as well. They do a whole lot of demonstration to show a whole lot of other, places, other lands, unknown lands on the planet. All right. So it's possible. It's very much possible that we've got that whole thing going on where there are a whole lot of unknown lands, but we can't access them because we don't have permission to cross. Why are they keeping us away from Antarctica? Definitely it can't be because they're trying to protect us. All right, that's my take. What's your take about what's going on in Antarctica? You ain't saying nothing. Right, let's moon landing. Okay, so there I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it's like that's another one. That's another one where people now have to explain a whole lot of things. The other, a few years ago, I don't know, I came across someone who worked in this type of scientific offices, and they do this kind of researches. They work with these things that have to do, it's like some kind of an astronomy type of branch of government or something like that she was working for. And then so I was asking, when are we going to the moon again? And uh her response was so funny, because firstly she looked at me like, the mere fact that I believe mainstream television, somewhere somehow she looked at me as if that makes me a little bit cuckoo for believing mainstream media. You understand? Because her take was literally as if it's almost as if I was supposed to know that there was no moon landing first and foremost. And also the way that she looked at me, it was almost as if she was trying to say, but how can you think, or we landed on the moon? Have you seen the moon though? Like, have you looked at the moon? Don't you understand? And that's what she said to me. That she says, but you can't go to the moon. You can't do anything with the moon, because the moon is just light. Is something like, you can literally put your hand through the moon if you to be very close to it. You understand? So the moon is not something where you can go and land on it and do anything on it. You understand? The moon is like literally like, if fire is even, it's like, what, a light bulb. When you have a light bulb and then the light is just there, and you just putting your hand next to the light there, like, in fact, the light bulb, is something tangible. You can touch it. But the light, if you were to remove the bulb and just leave the light glowing on its own, the moon is like that. It's like the light just glowing like that. You can put your hand through it like that. So you cannot land on it. You cannot go there. And that's why we are not going to the moon again. You understand? So that was her take on the matter. But a lot of people who are looking into this thing as well, they are saying, no, there's no such thing as moon landing. That whole thing did not happen. You understand? That's why we can't go back, because the reality is that, it could be much more harder to, fake it the way that they did the first time around. Okay, so, and the unfortunate part is where we have to now, accept our children being taught such kind of nonsense, to say, people went to the moon when no such thing has happened. Yeah, it's a little bit annoying. A lot of these things are actually quite annoying, to think that in order to be in touch with reality in this world, you literally have to distance yourself from a lot of things that should have otherwise been ideal under normal circumstances. So no moon landing, all of these stories that we are being told basically don't make any sense. How that they spend billions, creating the machinery and everything to go to the moon, and then next thing you know, they have come back, but they cannot, for the life of them, they cannot go back. They destroyed the whole thing, and there's no reason as to why they destroyed the whole thing. And then there's no reason as to why they can't rebuild it again. And it's like, they apparently put a flag there. Did they put a flag there? But you can't see it. Like, nothing makes sense. It's the minute you end up having to have a headache every time you have to figure something out. You know that you are being lied to. You know that you are being deceived. You know that someone is feeding you wet salad. That's what's going on here. And then you can't ask the astronauts that went there about the whole thing. you know no, yeah, it's too much. It's too much. So that's why I just don't believe it. It's like, I can't believe it. I refuse to believe things that don't make sense. I really refuse to believe things that don't make sense. Now let's look at number 5, timelines. So there's this gentleman, apparently is called Antonio Flamenco, I'm probably butchering his name. It's probably not Antonio. It's probably something else, but the surname is Flamenco. I think you might have heard of him. And this is someone who wrote a book, in fact, about the timelines, the fact that we could actually be existing in a different timeline. And that, I mean, he didn't just write one book. I think he wrote several books actually, to explain how that the timelines are actually different. have been removed or added or something along those lines to our current timeline. And that's also very much possible. You know, once again, as I've said before, I don't trust anything that these people say. Like, I do not, there's not a single thing that these people say that I take, just at surface level, at face value. You understand? A lot of things, especially things that are important, I don't trust them to give us the right information. Firstly, let's just consider the fact that, and this is one of the reasons why I say these people are really messing with us. They are messing with our children. They are messing with our lives when it comes to the quality and the kind of education that they are giving us. Because first and foremost, why did they have to change the calendar? Because as human beings, we are aligned to the planet, we are aligned to nature, we are aligned to reality. So we were supposed to be, especially for example, as women, we are aligned to the moon. And it's not just as women, as human beings generally, we are aligned to the moon. So meaning the calendar is always supposed to be aligned to the moon. That's what the sun and the moon are for. That's their purpose, to be able to assist us when it comes to managing and maintaining time. You understand? But no, they had to remove us out of reality. The moon, it takes 28 or 29 days for the moon to do its thing, to cycle, right? So instead of them, aligning their calendar to the moon, they decided to create their own thing, their own artificial calendar, one that would take us out of touch with reality, create a whole lot of disharmony within the psyche of a human being and within the planet as well, lower our vibrational frequency. So if we were to align with the moon, then naturally we would have about 13 months in a year instead of 12. We would have 13 months in a year. And probably if we were going according to the calendar of the moon, definitely we would be in a completely different year than we are now. Apparently, according to some people, China has its own calendar and it has its own year that it's in right now. And then also apparently even Ethiopia has its own year that it's in now. And then also we have our own year now. I don't know. I've never studied the Chinese calendar. I've never studied the Ethiopian calendar. I think other people as well could be having their own calendar as well. But as for the rest of us that are working according to the Western way of things, we are just using this calendar that is completely out of touch with reality. I don't know about the other people if theirs are in touch with reality or not, but the fact remains, if that's the case, that means there's no way that we are operating in the correct timeline. You understand? There's no way. There's absolutely no way that we are in the. There's no. We are not in 2024. We just don't know which year we are in. Okay, so we are only in 2024 according to their calendar, according to the system of the matrix, which is fine. We'll work with it because we need to work with it. But when it comes to true reality, this is not the correct timeline as far as I can see. Because if we were in the correct timeline, we would definitely have 13 months in a year and not 1 month and not 12 months. Right now, soul trap. Okay. This is number 6, and then we're gonna go to number 7, and then we will be done. Let's see how we're doing with time. Ooh, okay. So soul trap. Now, when it comes to soul trap, this is what we're dealing with here. So, a soul trap is a concept where we've been we've seen and we've researched a little bit, and there are a lot of content creators as well that focus on the soul trap concept. And this has to do with the fact that once again, so there's a thing called the soul trap community. And so these are people that, well, I call them the soul trap community. These are people that believe that we are trapped currently in this particular reality. And not only are we trapped in this reality for now, for this particular lifetime, but according to the soul trap community, the trap that we are dealing with here and the level at which it operates is that the people that are in charge of this particular reality, Satan's little children, what they do and how they operate is that every single thing that exists in this reality, they have hijacked, they have, manipulated, they have distorted in some shape or form, and they have designed everything to be a trap for humanity and for the souls, because these people, Satan's little children, are basically people that feed of human souls. You understand? That's how the story goes. And so basically, the trap is keeping humanity here. All right. So when you are here, you are alive. The trap is, keeping you trapped in the loop of repeating the same toxic and karmic cycles. And also, if you try, if you die, if you pass away, the trap is to bring you back again by using, your ancestors, your loved ones, your spirit guides and angels and God and so on. According to the soul trap community, even God of the Bible, religions, and all of those things, these are things that have been created by the narcissistic dark matrix, or Satan's little children. All right. So basically, they are the ones that are in charge of the whole thing. They created religions, they created the concept of God, they created everything. And even if you die, they will still follow you in the afterworld, and they will still convince you to come back and say, no, I am God. It's not your time yet. You need to come back. Or, okay, just go into the light. And then you go into the light, you're thinking you're going to heaven, or you land up back here on this planet. This is what the soul trap community believes. So this is the one topic where I don't 100% agree with them, but I agree with a huge portion of what they say. There are just some things that I don't 100% agree with them on, but I acknowledge that, because there's some comfort that you will definitely get from the soul trap community that you will not get from other communities that are into research and into conspiracies and even into spirituality, into consciousness and all of that. Okay, so the comfort that you will get is, getting to understand how that there are other people in this world that are able to see the level of evil that exists in this particular reality. You understand? And how that, they see how distorted and perverted and just awful and horrendous this whole setup is. So I really appreciate that about the soul trap community. The only part where I don't agree with them, is the part where it's like, it's almost as if they do not and I get it, the way that they see it is they don't want you to believe in God per se. They want you to believe that you are God. They want you to know that you are God, and that is true. But there's just something about it that's a little bit limited. And also, it's to them, it's almost as if their whole approach is sort of like, you get to throw out the bath with the baby with the bath water. And that's also where I don't agree with them, because it's like, for example, their idea, the perspective that religion has been created by these demonic entities that run this world. So then that means you should not participate in religion, or you should not take anything that has to do with religion, or you should not read the Bible, or anything like that. And for me, the way I see it is that this dark entity, this dark force, this dark group of people that are in charge of this world, quote unquote, are basically just operating and existing in a fallacious reality, in a fallacy, in a false reality, in an illusory type of reality. They're existing in an overlay type of reality, but the reality that they're existing in, it's not the true ultimate reality. You understand? It's a false type of reality. Once again, it's almost as if when you are dealing with a narcissist, whatever it is that you have going on there with a narcissist, it's not connected to reality. You understand? It's the same thing with this group of people. But then there is true reality. And then what the narcissists, these demonic forces that are in charge of this world, what they have done is they have just simply distorted everything that exists in true reality, so that they tempered it down, they watered it down, they distorted and perverted it down so that it could accommodate their specific vibrational frequency. You understand? And then also it's important for them, so for us to believe that we are hopelessly helpless against them. They need that. They need us to believe that. I can't believe that, and I don't believe that. It's like, okay, fine, whatever happens, it is what it is. But I choose to believe in the existence of God, true creator God, the one that creates true reality. And I still believe that he is in charge. And I will say he because I'd rather say he than say it. And I know I could say she, but it feels okay to say he. You understand? And that's one of those things. It's like there are some things where, yes, definitely we got them from the Matrix and all of that, but are we going to just take everything and see it as evil, as bad, as horrible? You understand? So it's one of those things. So it's like, no, I still choose to believe there is God, and I still choose to believe that he is good and benevolent and he is in charge. And I don't believe that ultimately this dark force of life will accomplish whatever it is that it wants to accomplish. All right. So I don't believe that this demonic force will, get to, completely solidify its reign over humanity. You understand? So I do believe it. So that's where I don't align with the soul trap community 100% there. It's like, no, um, when it comes to religion, I don't want to box myself with religion because I understand, like, for example, when it comes to Christianity, I definitely believe in the Bible and everything, but I don't make the mistake of forgetting the fact that Christianity, the Bible and everything was brought to me by the very same group of people. So I don't make the mistake of understanding the fact that there are certain aspects of the Bible which might really be distorted. But once again, I also respect the fact that I know that this narcissistic force that is running the narcissistic matrix does not create anything. What it does is that it finds things in place. They are finders, founders. That's what they are. They do not create. They are not creators. They are just finders. They find things and they distort them. They pervert them. You understand? That's what they do. But they don't create anything. All right. So that's why, as much as they are really horrible and abhorrent, and they are definitely a force to reckon with. But I refuse to believe that they are more powerful than true God Creator, and I refuse to believe that they have power and authority over what gets to happen to me after I pass away. You understand? I refuse to believe that. And I understand that there are people that have had their own experiences where they died and then they ended up coming back. Apparently, people have those kind of testimonies. I don't know because I've never been there. So I can't say they are wrong. I can't say they are lying. I can't say they are telling the truth either. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. But personally, I refuse to accept that, some demonic narcissistic force has the authority over my life, even beyond, this particular realm. I really, really believe that my life is in the hands of true ultimate God Creator. So that's just how it is for me. And then I will take whatever important codes that I need to take from Bible and sacred scriptures, the various religions. I love the Hindu religion and all of those things. So I do take whatever it is that I need to take. You understand? And as well, I take from those, but I will never box myself with somewhat hijacked and distorted the narcissistic force. So that's where I am. All right, so now let's look at the free energy, free everything. Now, this is still something that is popping up. People's memories are just doing things. Okay, they are returning. Basically, that's what's going on. People's memories are returning, and because of that, people are discovering a whole lot of things. I was looking at social media. There's this young man that has discovered, and he's not the first one. There are many videos that I've seen where people, and many of them are black people that have discovered how to actually make fuel. This young man knows how to make fuel, diesel, and gas out of plastic, waste plastic. And then all of a sudden, after discovering these things, his life is being threatened. And now he has to go into hiding. He can't really do anything with his invention because he is a threat to the system. You understand? Because literally, with all the plastics that we are all wasting here, if we could, take all of that plastic and start turning it into fuel, we're not buying petrol anymore. You understand? We're not buying diesel anymore. That is the complete collapse of industry. And so people that are in charge of industry are refusing to allow that to happen. So, meaning we live in a world, because I can tell you now, even electricity is free. Electricity is free. This whole thing that we are using where we have to pay for it is something that has been created by human beings to trap us, these demonic narcissists that want to control everything, that want to be in charge of everything, and they do not want humanity to exist in a state of freedom and liberation. So they have literally set up systems whereby we have to pay for things that we do not need to pay. So literally, poverty is an artificially man-made thing, and I think we all know that. If the cost of electricity and petrol can just be removed, taken out of the way, and even water, if all of that can be removed, taken out of, because there's no such thing as there's water scarcity. They try to lie to us so many times. You know, they keep complaining about we are destroying the planet. We are destroying the planet, so much waste, so much waste. What is one of the major causes of waste in this world? Plastic. So now that we know that we can actually use this plastic to create fuel, how come we are not using the plastic to create fuel? So meaning they are deliberately allowing the planet to be destroyed because they are that destructive, rather than allowing humanity to have free energy. So if you were to remove the cost of fuel, electricity, and water, if three of these things were to be free, what would happen to industry? What would happen to this monopoly of power all across the world? What would happen to it? Human beings, demonic human beings, wanting to sit in their Eiffel Towers and ruling and reigning over the rest of the masses, enjoying, laughing sadistically as people are busy killing each other for nothing, no reason whatsoever. They keep talking about inflation. They keep talking about all of this silly concept. Madness, madness. No reason whatsoever for us to be dealing with all the kind of nonsense that we are dealing with. We are squabbling every day, fighting for artificially limited resources. All these things are free, and so they've always been free. They've always been free, and people are now remembering that, oh, actually these things we can get them out of electricity. You can get it literally out of, people are making electricity out of nothing, out of coal, out of whatever, out of soil, out of a whole lot of things that you wouldn't even imagine that electricity can come out of this, because electricity is energy, and energy is everywhere. When as a spiritual person, here's the one thing that I understand very well, that the air around us is spirit. Because in the African dialect, spirit means moya, which is air. So the word air and spirit are synonymous in the African dialect. It's moya. So air is moya in the African, and in across the board from South Africa all the way to North Africa, it's moya. Air is moya and spirit is moya. Is the same thing. So this, and what is moya? Is the spirit of God, is the spirit of true ultimate creator. And this is energy. It's energy. What is energy? It's electricity. So meaning, literally, electricity is this thing that we are literally wrapped in. We are in it and it is in us, electricity. So if there's anything that is available in ample supply in this world, that's electricity. If anything should be free, more free than anything else in this world, that should be electricity. And yet here in Africa, in South Africa, 1,000 rands will only get you 300 units of electricity. If you are lucky, because it could be less, depending on where you are. 1,000 rands, what could you do with 1,000 rands? This is daylight robbery. Like this, we are being made to pay for things that are free. So anyway, that's just what I wanted to share with you for today. Thank you so much for spending time with me on this transmission. Oh, it was fun, just ranting and raving. Until next time, yeah, goodbye.